Let's get physical, physical. I wanna get physical. Yeah, is that Olivia Newton-John, right? Hey, everybody, welcome to Fatso Radio. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? This episode of Fatso Radio is brought to you by Volpe Martial Arts. This episode and every episode is brought to you by Volpe Martial Arts. Volpe Martial Arts is KW's hottest, newest Kung Fu and Hapkido martial arts school, folks. Sifu Adam Volpe, my brother, brings you his lifelong passion and skill and enthusiasm to the Kung floor. Right now it's virtual, but as soon as we get back out of lockdown, we'll go back in the house. It's going to be rocking. Folks, this episode, I come to you on talking to your body, listening to your body. That's how I was trying to do that terrible rendition of Olivia Newton-John. Let me hear your body talk. I think that's what it was. Anyway, if I was wrong, please let me know. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Thank you so much. I love you all. Hope you enjoy the show. Likes, comments, shares, all that stuff. And let me know. Lily, take it away.
Fatso, the really great podcast show.
Fatso, our very first podcast show.
Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to Fatso Radio. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? My name is Carlo Volpe. Again, that's Carlo Volpe, and it's my pleasure to come to you each and every Friday night. Sometimes a little bit before Friday, sometimes a couple days before the Friday, but each episode comes out on a Friday, folks, and it is my pleasure to give this to you, rather, whatever it's worth to you. And I hope you do enjoy it. I'm on audio, of course. I'm on wherever you can find audio podcasts. I'm there. I'm on YouTube and wherever you can find YouTube, wherever I can find YouTube links, Facebook and all that jazz. So check it out, folks. Fatso Radio. Again, just to recap, what is Fatso Radio? Why did I pick the name Fatso Radio? And why do I insist on keeping this name? Even though some people don't agree with it. Some people think that may be offensive. Some people don't really understand why I'm picking it. But I want to tell you again, all the listeners and all the viewers, why I picked the name Fatso Radio and why I do like it. And I hope that I can honor the name in every aspect that I can, or any different way or point of view that I can. Again, Fatso, because I have been overweight my entire life. I'm still overweight. I have times where I was 120 pounds overweight, times where I was 130 pounds overweight, times when I was just 20 or 30 pounds overweight as I was a kid, as I got older, up and down through my 20s, through my 30s, and I'm 42 years old now. And now I'm closer to what my ideal weight is. Still not even close to my ideal weight, but closer than I was. At my biggest, I was 330 pounds. At a 5'9", 5'10", I'll say 5'10" and a half, 5'11" at the biggest. 5'11", 300 pounds, 320 pounds is way, 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 way too much. I'm around 220 pounds now, 210 sometimes, 220. But the bottom line is that I've lost a lot of weight. But how did I do it? I lost it by eating a lot of fat, and primarily fat and predominantly fat. And for the most part of my diet, it was fat. High fat diet, high fat and high protein diet, and a very, very low carbohydrate diet. So fat, so two reasons there. One, I know what it's like to be fat. I know what it's like to still be fat, but also to be called fat, and to have the negative connotations of fat. So I get that. So if someone says, and that's offensive to me because I'm overweight and I don't like the term fat. So I get it. And my intention is not to name shame or to fat shame even, but my intention is to use that as a shield, a badge almost, to say, embrace it. If you are overweight, embrace it. Fat. So this could be your solution. Because even though taking the wrong advice that we've received from many different sources got us in the position where we're even fatter than we thought, or even fatter than we intentionally had tried to be. For a lot of people, they've tried to lose weight over the years by getting rid of fat. And that's why I'm embracing the name Fatso. And that's why I'm embracing the philosophy of Fatso. Fat is not the enemy. Fat is not the problem. To overdo it on fat in your diet is almost impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult. But the real problem is sugar, folks. And the real problem is a high sugar and a high carbohydrate diet together. Put them together and you get the standard American, standard Western diet, standard Canadian, American, whatever you want to call it. And it's a bad, bad diet. If you eat it for a long, long time and you're not healthy and you don't happen to have great genetics, or you're not an athlete, it can lead to serious problems. And that's what this Fatso Radio is all about. It's about embracing the idea that fat is not the enemy. Fat is not going to harm us. In fact, fat has changed my life. Fat has, I think, saved my life. It's ketogenic diets have been shown to fight cancer and support the immune system. Ketogenic diets have also shown, of course, to help people lose weight. And the carnivore diet is very similar. You're in ketosis for a lot of your day, for a lot of your week, for some people as well. So that's the whole idea of Fatso Radio again, folks. And today, what I want to talk about is how a food really affects our bodies, and it does affect everybody a little bit differently. How I really want to start this out is by saying that, does your body talk to you? And I know that sounds crazy. I definitely am one of those guys that would, maybe 10 years, maybe not 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if one of my sisters would have said, and one of my sisters probably did say, especially my oldest sister, definitely would have said, well, what does your body tell you? Or not even that. She would probably would have more have been, on the way along the lines of, my body tells me this, right? Or my body tells me that. And my sisters, well, my one sister at least, will still probably say that to me because because her body still tells her stuff, right? And she can understand, and she can communicate with her body. And that sounds really crazy. If it does sound crazy, stay with me. This is not one of those episodes where we go right off the deep end. We have those episodes, folks, but I don't think this is one of those. But when I mean it talks to your body, and when I mean that I thought it was crazy as well, it's because I really didn't understand what people meant when they said that. And I don't even really know exactly what she means, but I know what I mean when I say it now, and I know what other people meant because I've talked to other people. Um, and what they mean is that they're in tune with their body. They're communicating with their body. Talking to your body is a way to say that. It may even be kind of not an offensive way. It may be kind of a controversial way to some people because it really reveals the truth, right? That you are talking, but it's in a non-conventional way, so it's kind of communicating. But the idea is that you really can communicate with your body, and you really do communicate with your body on an everyday basis. We all do it every single day, probably millions of times a day, or maybe not millions, but tens of thousands of times a day, and we just don't know. Our body communicates with itself through natural autonomic systems where it's completely automatic, and you don't do anything, but your body will communicate with you in the same way, based off of the food you eat. So that's what I'm getting at. I get what that means now when someone says my body, I can talk to my body, I can feel my body. I guess the idea of what that means. I don't know what they mean exactly, because some people may attribute certain things to things that I don't understand. So I can't rule out anything. But what I mean is that I know now when I eat certain foods, the reaction that my body has by these certain foods. I really know, and I can really tell. Um, but I can really tell by the aftermath. The reason why I can say that, and this is the way my body talks to me, is because I found that out by going through these elimination diets, right? Not elimination diets. I don't want to say that in the idea of like all these different things I've tried and all these different gimmicks. I don't mean that. What I mean is that an elimination period. So whether it's 30 days or whether it's 60 days, 30 days is the best kind of staple to use, or the best um, template to use, rather, because it's 30 days. I mean, you're not going to, you can do anything for 30 days. It's difficult, don't get me wrong, but you can still do it for 30 days. So in an elimination diet, you remove everything, remove all processed foods, you remove all processed, grains and boxed foods and canned foods and any fruits or vegetables, or if you want as well. You can do that. And from a ketogenic perspective, or I would encourage this from a carnivore perspective, you can do it to the point where in a ketogenic perspective, you're just eating clean, protein, fatty protein, of course, and then maybe some vegetables. The vegetables that you tolerate the best. And even that is going to be a bit of an experiment, right? Because for a lot of people, we've just been eating the same things, the same relative things, a group of things, 10 fruits and vegetables, for lack of a better number, for our whole life, right? So a lot of people don't know really what affects them, and really to what extent certain things do affect them. And I really want to emphasize that for a moment, because there's people I've talked to in my life, close to me still, but definitely in the past, and where I've worked with, and that said, well, I don't really understand, because certain foods I eat, I don't really know if they affect me or not. I may feel a little gas fights and beans or something, but when I say a certain food affects me, certain foods or food affects me, I mean it kind of affects my whole digestion, and then the aftermath of that is everything, because digestion is essential for me anyway. Everything, and I'm sure everybody's the same, but for me, if my digestion is off, oh my God, that's just the snowball that kind of gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So for a lot of people, I think they maybe just feel like, um, certain foods will only affect them if they have the extreme end of an intolerance or an allergy. There you go. So everybody knows what an allergy is, or most people know what an allergy is, of course. A really, really severe reaction, right? Sometimes it's anaphylactic, or it's a super harsh immune reaction, because your immune system's like, this is bad. Let's get out of this, or let's get let's get rid of this situation or this toxin or whatever it is. And it goes into a shock system where, you know, sometimes it'll give you a fever, it'll swell up, it'll try and fight this infection, create antibodies, white blood cells, all of that stuff. So, but for other people and for other situations, it's not like that at all. It's just different intolerances or different ways that our body kind of works, or what I think what it comes down to is that we start feeding and we continuously feed the certain bacteria in our gut, not to get to the whole episode about gut bacteria, but certain bacteria in our guts that prefer certain other foods. And I think that we keep on eating that food. And I think that that's a little bit where cravings come from. But the bottom line is, I think if you keep on eating certain types of foods for years and years and years, and then if that, especially if you're eating a huge, wide variety of foods, it's really hard to, I think, isolate. It's really hard to identify for a lot of people if food does give them a problem. And I think that kind of loop this around again. I think that's why sometimes it's really hard for people to identify if certain foods give them a problem. And I've even had pushback, like close family members, you know, and close friends that I love dearly and I love for the rest of my life. Because I completely still can be completely wrong, but I have this hunch, and I've heard it from other people, and this is why I feel like this, but is that because they've never truly removed a lot of the, or at least a big bulk of the processed food and a lot of the oftentimes problematic foods. What I'm getting at is, if you've never really removed those problematic foods completely, then it's really going to be hard. It's really, really going to be hard to be able to at least rule those out. Then I'm going to be the first person that probably says it's probably going to be one of those problem foods. It's probably going to be one of those processed foods, highly refined foods, modern foods, foods that just don't grow from the ground or have a heartbeat, right? Or swim or fly or walk or crawl. So if you have an elimination diet, or if you go through an elimination process, and a true elimination where it's like you are going to eat something just like meat, you know, and veggies, or meat and salads, or meat and cucumbers, or not cucumbers, or meat and squash, or whatever it is, and eggs and broccoli and you know, like greens, let's say, but not have too many greens, because a lot of different greens affect you as well, right? I would stay away from beans, of course. Still have it like a paleo-ish, definitely a paleo. But the reason for that is because, like I said, and I really think that this is the root of a lot of people, is because we've been eating so much different food for so long, that maybe a handful of those foods give you a problem, right? And for example, when someone says, you know, Twinkies are bad, well, sure, I don't eat a Twinkie every day, right? It's a common thing that people say. Even if someone has Twinkies once a month or something, it doesn't really matter the frequency. But say you eat a Twinkie once and it's a Monday, and then the next day you eat something that's a high carbohydrate, highly processed food, in a lot of people's eyes are equivalent to a Twinkie, but maybe not a Twinkie. Maybe it's a bagel with some I don't know, some high fruit something on it, and you know, whatever, and then the next day you're having a croissant, and it's, you know, it's the next day you're having a muffin or a sandwich, or you're always having some processed foods, but they're different types. Like, this is where it gets confusing for a lot of people. Like, well, I don't have bagels every single day. Well, no, but you have a bagel light food every single day. English muffin one day, a bagel the next day, you know, French toast the next day, pancakes the next day, just toast the next day, you know, whatever it is. Like, if you're eating a food that has the possible culprit, in this case, maybe it's grains, maybe in this case, maybe it's wheat. In this case, maybe within the wheat is the gluten, just for example, right? If gluten is your issue, but you stay away from pasta, that's not enough, right? And I'm not saying you have to stay away from pasta, but in this scenario, if you're trying to eliminate gluten, if you're trying to eliminate wheat, you really have to look at where wheat is, and it's everywhere. Wheat is everywhere, folks. It's even things that shouldn't even have wheat. So there's an example. But it's really hard to do that unless you really go to, and this is one of the reasons why I love a ketogenic or carnivorous diet, not just because it's simple, it is very simple, but because it's a real great way to eliminate all that bullshit, and then you're left with like a core couple foods. And the ironic thing is, the most ironic thing, and maybe it's not irony, maybe it's in the way the stars work, or maybe it's God's work or God's plan, or whatever it is. But for me at least, when I went to that place where I just eliminated everything, just meat and butter, and beef and butter for a while, or beef and eggs for 30 days, or I did it a couple times for 30 days. After the first 30 days, or even the first week or so, I realized, holy shit, this is all I need. This is all I need. And I feel great. And then, so as you can introduce more foods back, you can do that. But then as I was introducing more foods back, I was questioning even the purpose of that. Why am I going to introduce more foods in when I feel great eating beef and butter? And I know what you're going to say, Carlo. Well, because you live in a world where there's more food than just beef and butter. There's more than just ground beef and eggs and butter. So you have to live in society. Okay, that's one argument. I think part of that argument I like to push back on, because I like to push back on everything. But part of the argument I like to push back on is we form society. So our actions and our culture and our traditions is what forms society. And believe me, more of our culture, more of our society, more of our social norms revolved around meat than they didn't. So let's check ourselves. If anybody's curious to even say that, whatever we do, or, forced, conditions or whatever it is social pressure. So I'll get off track there, get all fired up. No, but really, and if you do have the elimination diet like that, where you just remove everything, you can see it. And then when you get to the point where you can see what it is, you can introduce more foods back and see how you react to that. But if you're anything like me, or if anything like a lot of people I've run into and talked to, and communicated over the internet and everywhere, that getting to that point, not only does it cure a lot of people's carb cravings, because one of the issues people have with the ketogenic diet in general is just really hard to kick carbs, especially if you're dabbling with carbs a little bit, right? And with the carnivorous diet, where you're kind of kick them to the curb completely, it helps a lot of people to just kick that addiction. If not completely for the rest of your life, I don't think anything can be completely kicked, maybe, but I think get as far enough away from it that you can just look at it and you realize it. And once in a while, maybe if you happen to slip your toe there by accident, you're okay. But you spend too much time in that space, I think that you're just going to fall back, right? If it is carbs, it's the problem is, and for a lot of people, it is carbs. So your body talks to you, and how do I? If you're listening, if you're watching, hi mom, dad, if you and you're wondering, well, like, okay, so what do you mean by your body? What do you mean by your body, listening to your body? Well, I'll tell you exactly. I'm not going to, hopefully it won't get too gross, but certain foods I eat completely, it will just mess up my digestion. So bread, for example, and the more processed a bread is, the more processed the carbohydrate is, the worse it is on my system. And yeast is another thing as well. The more yeast is in the bread, the more, I don't know what it is. It's something about yeast. My body doesn't like yeast, right? But yeast likes sugar, right? So if there's more yeast, there's more sugar. And if you have any yeast problems, if you have any gut issues, the more yeast you eat and the more sugar you have with that, it's not going to help you, folks. Again, great time to remind everybody, I'm not a doctor, but you don't need to be a doctor to know that if you're having any type of a yeast, any type of a fungal issue, any type of a athlete's foot to Taenia vesicolor to ringworm to what else? Yeast infections to I say toenail fungus. Yeah, toenail fungus even. Any kind of fungus, anything like that. You want to eat sugar is not good, right? And more yeast is not good. There you go. I said my piece about that. But listen to your body, because it's a process. It's a process on how to learn even to listen to your body, because how to even to know what your body is saying. A lot of us can say, I want to get back to that. A lot of us can say, well, if I eat certain, if I'm lactose intolerant, I know what it's like to go through a lactose intolerance kind of a moment, right? Whether it's gas or whether it's diarrhea, whether it's constipation, everybody's a little bit different. And for grains and breads, a lot of people are starting to realize, well, if I eat a lot of bread, or for some people, if I eat any bread, I get bloated. I feel like a little pop in my belly, or it's pasta, whatever it is. Learn how to read your body. That's just part of it. That's part of it. That's part of it that a lot of us know already. And like the other thing I said about allergic reactions, that's an obvious thing. If you're eating shellfish, if you're eating peanuts, and common allergic reactions, and you have allergic reaction to that, you're going to know, and that's very, very obvious. But a lot of the other things are not so obvious. So things like milk chocolate. Milk chocolate bothers me. It bothers me that it bothers me. Believe me. Because it tastes delicious. And the cheaper, shittier, dollar store crap chocolate is the horns, the tip of the horns that strikes my ass and strikes my belly. It strikes every part of my soul, and it makes me rethink every action I've ever taken in life. And every action, believe me, because I don't know what it is. It's the lactose of sure, but it's just a crappy sugar, crappy lactose. They probably just, I don't even know how they make this stuff. That's really hard on me. Crappy ice cream is really hard on me. But at the same time, great cheese is not. Great cheese is nothing wrong to me, nothing bad on me. So, but bread again, same thing. Chocolate, bread, ice cream. These are the things that are really hard on me. Believe it or not, certain sugar, the simpler the sugar, sometimes the easier it is on me. So sometimes a little bit of candy is a great cheat for me. Again, not a planned cheat, but sometimes a little bit of candy is a good alternative for me rather, because it's not going to come with ramifications of bloatiness and maybe some diarrhea or maybe some constipation or maybe a little bit of both. Like, that's the amazing thing about eating bad food for your body. Not to get too much off tangent here, or on a tangent rather, but your body will react in really, really different ways. And your body will react different ways based on what the ground condition is of your body. And what I mean by that is, you may not have an adverse reaction to a certain type of food under a normal circumstance, or under what maybe your body considers a healthy circumstance, or a healthy metabolic state. So what I mean by that is that, say you're healthy and you're normal, and for whatever reason you've been eating foods for the last couple of weeks, or not just the foods, but your life is going well, and you're just a healthy person, your digestion is good, and maybe you're just one of these people that are always healthy. Maybe it turns out that your actions and your habits are what dictates your health, probably, but maybe you're just lucky. And what was I saying about that? Okay, I remember what I was saying. If you're a healthy person, you're going through regular digestion, your healthy life, and then you eat something, or you're not, you eat something, but you go through something that is affecting you, or you start noticing something that affects you over time. That's what I kind of want to get into, really, is that you may have been healthy your entire life, and you may have been healthy your entire life, even eating these certain foods, or even practicing these certain techniques, or not techniques, but these certain behaviors and certain lifestyles and certain routines and habits, and not affect you. And in a weird way, there's two scenarios where that could be, right? You can be someone who's unhealthy your whole life and dealing with health problems, diseases. Diseases people can easily chalk up as diseases of civilization, diseases like things that obesity, diabetes. They say heart disease. These things that, I'm not saying this, but people are saying that we give them to ourselves, right? Even cancer can arguably say that we give it to ourselves, and me included, everybody. So I don't know, but if you're generally healthy, or sorry, if you're generally not healthy, and you have a life, or you're unhealthy your whole life, or you're generally healthy your whole life, over time things get even worse, or things just pile on. So if you're unhealthy your whole life, or if you're battling mental, or not mental issues, but mental included, but if you're battling health issues, they will get worse year after year after year after year, unless there's an intervention, unless something changes in your life. And to the same side, or to the same degree, but in a different way, even if you're relatively healthy your whole life, things tack on over time, things build up over time. And I'm not really saying this in a great way, but what I'm trying to say is that our body, and illnesses, and toxins, and everything, and even just things that kind of happen in life, they build up and they compound themselves. So whether you're unhealthy or whether you are healthy, over time I think things build up. And what I'm trying to say is that if you're someone who's relatively healthy your whole life, or has been relatively healthy your whole life, it's sometimes hard to even think that it may be your diet. It may be hard to think that it could be your diet, especially if you've been eating what you think is the same thing for the last 20 years or the last 30 years. But at the same time, you may have been having some of these small problems, or chronic low-level issues that you have maybe not associated them to certain foods. So I just want to kind of explore, or not explore, but urge people to really investigate and really open your eyes, and open the possibility that it could be something, and in a lot of cases it is something that you've been eating maybe your whole life, right? One of the other things I want to talk about is that we used to hear of a lot of people dying from old age, and I don't, the first thing a lot of people will say is that, well, it's because we didn't know what they died from, and I don't think that's the case. I think we know what people died from. Maybe heart disease we didn't understand completely as well as we do in the last 50 years or so, but for the most part, I think we knew what people died from. We definitely knew what cancers, and we definitely knew by diabetes for a long time. But what I'm getting at is that you don't hear about that as much these days. You hear about people living longer, which is great, right? The average age is getting older and older. Maybe I think it's actually started to plateau off a bit, but it's been getting older and older. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the average older age is better, right? It means that the average person is living longer, great, which is amazing. And by definition, you have a higher chance of living a better life, of course, if you live longer. And if you're in that group of people who live to be, for example, 90 years old, if you're allowed to be 90, then you have a better chance of having a good life at 90 than if someone is dead at 85. That's obvious. That's obvious. But what I don't hear too much of is people dying of old age these days. And they do sometimes. You hear about these people and you hear about them in the news, actually, or in social media. And when you do hear about them, it's a big deal. And that's something that I don't think you hear about too often. Or sorry, when you do hear about them, it is such a big deal that it needs to be investigated. We should look into why. So on one hand, I think people are living older and they are living healthier lives. There's a vein of our population, rather, that is doing that. We're trying to do that. I'm trying to be one of those people. So far, I'm staying alive, which is great. But there's a vein of those people that are succeeding. Mark Sisson, people his age and people older that are doing really great. At the same time, there's people that are just getting older, but not as healthy, but are still getting older. So, and then there's a group of vein of people that are not getting older, right? And some people are saying, or now that our children are, sicker than we are. But it's something that you don't hear about as much anymore. Is it just dying of old age? And I think one of the reasons why, and maybe I can kind of wrap this up today, is because of all the processed food and all of the, and I'm not, this is not, this is not earth-shattering information. It's not the first time you're probably going to hear this, but all the crap in our diet and all the food that we eat and all the toxins in our environment, yes, all of this stuff makes us sicker. Well, we're still living longer. So that means that we're staying alive by modern technology. We're staying alive by modern medicine. That's great. But what's the quality of life like, right? If you're not a strong 60, 70, 80-year-old, or even 50-year-old, 60, 70-year-old, 80 or 90-year-old or 100-year-old. So I think that part of the reason why people are you're not hearing people dying of old age rather anymore is because you can live long in a sick state. We can live longer in a sick state. Now, that can people can argue that that's better, and of course it's better because you're alive, right? Human life is valuable. I 100% agree with that. But when it's your life, right, when it's your human life that's at stake and it's at risk, then you look at it a little bit differently. You don't look at it not just by a number as a number. You look at the quality of life. And you look at what you want to achieve and what you want to bring and how you want to experience life and all that stuff. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you try and live a healthy life, a natural life, the way our grandparents did, the way our great grandparents did, because there was always people that lived to be 100. There's always people that lived to be 90. It was by no means an anomaly to have someone to live to be 90. It was just not super, super common. It just wasn't the average. Let's just say that. But everybody had somebody they knew. It's just, it wasn't the average. It's so many people dying of a young age. Infant mortality was high. That it skews the numbers. So dying of 90 is not something that we're new. It's not new to our civilization. It's not new to our era, our generation. If anything, our generation is not doing it as well as other generations. And maybe the next generation will learn. I really think the next generation, my kids' generation, and if you have young kids right now, your kids' generation, the 10-year-olds, the younger than them, they are going to get it. They get it. They're living. They see this shit. They see the crap that's going on. And I think they see their great grandparents and what they did. And they're learning, hopefully they're learning through things like this. Friends, family. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just trying to get you to think about something in a different way. So what? When I stumbled on the idea, like, again, it wasn't me. It wasn't me that just discovered fat's not our enemy, that fat's not the problem. Many other people, many smart people. And my job is to get the word out. And the same thing with everything else. So let's investigate. Let's look at things again, look at it from a different perspective. Listen to your body. Your body can tell you stuff. And back to that again, how does your body talk to you? Try an elimination diet. Try to go through the bare bones skeleton diet, what you may consider a very, very plain, boring diet. You may rediscover that the foods that you thought maybe were plain and boring aren't plain and boring at all. And in the process, you'll figure out, you'll tap into what's important. And what's important with this episode, at least every episode. By the way, this episode and every episode is sponsored by Volpe Martial Arts, friends, family. Volpe Martial Arts is KW's hottest, newest Kung Fu and Hapkido school. Check them out, volpemartialarts.com. So what you'll figure out, if you can figure out, and what you'll be able to tap into is the knowledge and the ability to communicate with your body, to really know what your body wants, to really know what your body needs. I believe now I'm learning what my body needs, and I understand what my body needs from a food perspective. There's so much more that our body needs from an exercise perspective, from I guess exercise. Yeah. I mean, the yoga, then the mind, the body, the meditation, there's so much that we need. We're just talking about food today. We're just talking about try to listen to your body, but it's relative to everything, right? And it'll bleed out to everything else. So listen to your body, not just the obvious things, like I said, but even try and listen to your body. If you eat a certain thing, wow, I get this skin rash or this little itch or something. Or one of the great things about elimination diet as well, which shows you kind of in a reverse engineered way, is what some things may go away after 30 days of no grains, after 30 days of no processed foods, after 30 days of no dairy. If you're a little bit sensitive to dairy, you may find things that you just chalked up as, shit happens. I got the Smith skin, or I got the Johnson skin. So the Smiths and Johnsons family, please don't email me being upset because I've used your name in vain. Definitely not vain. I love you all. But and I can do a whole episode on what I think is the crap we chalk up to family genetics. I really do. I think that we don't all have different genetics, but yes, our genetics vary. And I think that they express themselves, illnesses and maladies express themselves and manifest themselves when we treat our bodies incorrectly. And I think by assaulting our bodies with the food that we've been assaulting them with over the last 50 years, or maybe even 100 years, we've triggered and we've revealed these possible issues that we can have, right? And genetic deformities or genetic weaknesses. And it comes up in different ways in everybody. Everybody has a little bit different way of manifesting, a much different way actually of manifesting their issues. I don't think we all need a different diet. I think we all need a very, very similar diet, but I think our genetics do differ. And I think they differ, and it shows themselves on the diseases that manifest, right? Not everybody's gonna have the same disease. You can have two people have the same life, have the same environment, have the same toxins, have everything the same diet, everything. They're gonna have completely different biologies, or they could rather have completely different biologies. And that way that maybe one person at the age of 30 will manifest some sort of disease, and the other person at age 30 or 40 or 50 will manifest another disease, or what have you, arthritis or any kind of thing, diabetes or cancer or anything. So we're all different, but I do believe that we all still need a human's appropriate diet, which I think is going to be a low carbohydrate diet. I think you're going to get there. I think you're going to get to health if you do that. It's not controversial. It's not medical advice for me to say that if you remove all the crap out of your diet, you'll be healthier. And if that is controversial, well, damn it, email me and tell me I'm a bad person for telling you bad advice to get rid of that diet, or sorry, to get rid of that bad food from your diet. Friends, family, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening and your likes and your shares and your comments and all that stuff. If you want to be on the show, fatsoradio@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and share, subscribe, hit the notifications button so you'll be notified on each future episodes. Again, like you said, share it to everybody you listen to, or anybody you know who might want to listen to or might want to watch the show. I appreciate everybody. Appreciate the sponsor. Fatso Radio loves you. Volpe Martial Arts. Sifu Adams is my brother, my family. Folks, thanks so much for listening. Listen to your body. Experiment. I'm one of those guys, and yes, it's funny because I'm the converted. I'm one of those guys that said it was crap. Listen to your body. That's okay. That's okay. The converted need to chat. The converted need to talk and need to spread the word, need to evangelize, or need to whatever it is that I'm doing. I love you all. Thank you so much. Peace. Fatso Radio. Let's say bye to everybody. And we'll say thanks for listening. Say thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Fatso Radio, the really great podcast show.
Fatso Radio, the really great podcast show.
So get your butt and get in your chair.
Don't eat your nails and don't pull your hair.
We'll talk about chicken or talk about steak.
We'll talk about fat, for goodness sake.
Fatso, the really great podcast show.
Fatso, our very first podcast show.